What's up, everybody? Kim Becker and Arif Dean here for a Colorado Avalanche AMA brought to you by Mile High Sports. Make sure that you are following Arif on Twitter and, of course, Mile High Sports, because we're going to send out tweets every week so that you can respond and answer or ask your questions, and Arif can answer them for you when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche. Arif, I know it's been a little tough for the Avs when it comes to that injury list. It seems that it's growing and growing, so we'll definitely get into that here in a little bit, but we'll start off with an injury that we've known about for a few weeks, Val Nichushkin, right? Everyone is very curious about his status, and this main question was, what is the timeline for Nichushkin to return, or anyone else? Are we just at the point where the team can only work with what they have?
To answer the second part first, yes, absolutely. We are at the point where the team can literally only work with what they have because they have no other choice. In terms of Nichushkin, he's getting closer. That's about the best way to put it. He is right now skating in Denver. He has been skating with the Avalanche skills coach while the Avalanche are on the road trip. It was November 8th when Jared Bednar announced that Val would be out a month. Today's December 5th. We're like right there for the timeline. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be back in 3 days, but we're right there with the timeline. He is progressing with his skating. So I would assume if we don't get an update today from Jared Bednar while the Avalanche are in Philly, we'll hear on Wednesday when the Avalanche are here at home at Ball Arena. So we're getting right there with Val Nichushkin. I think he's the closest to coming back, and obviously he would be a huge piece right now.
A huge piece, and they can take any piece they can get at this point. I mean, we've talked about this before, Arif, especially last week. They're finding ways to win. They still are. I know it was kind of a rocky week, but they're still finding ways to win with what they have, and we hope they can stay on that trajectory. But any of these guys that can come back would obviously help immensely. So I'm excited to stay tuned on this one and hear what you know as the week goes on. But we'll move on to this second question here. The Avs' last 2 losses have come in brutal fashion. This is true, losing 5-1 to the Bruins the other night and 5-0 to Winnipeg last week. What gives, Arif?
What gives is sometimes these games are going to happen. I mean, the Avalanche, look, so they lost 5-0 in Winnipeg. Then they beat the Buffalo Sabres, but they surrendered 4 goals in the process. They won 6-4, and then they lost 5-1 in Boston. Now, the 3 keys to the Avalanche's success the last month or so, altitude always does those 3 keys to the game. And honestly, until the rest of the team gets healthy, they can recycle the same 3. The 3 keys are Nathan MacKinnon's got to have a great game. The goalies have to play in over their head, and the power play has to pitch in. Okay. Against the Winnipeg Jets, Nathan MacKinnon was shut down. The goalies were not making saves. Obviously, the power play was shut down. Against the Buffalo Sabres, the goalies were not making saves, but Nathan MacKinnon had a 5-point night. Anytime Nathan MacKinnon has a 5-point night, he's probably scoring on the power play, so the PP's working. You're going to win a game. And then against the Boston Bruins, once again, the top line was shut down. Now, the biggest issue with this is, and I've been talking about it for a while, the Avalanche's goaltending has held this team in. Georgiev and Frankie. The big issue that I see there is right now they are both coming off of their last 2 games have been tough. There was that 4-1 win over Dallas. Georgie played that game. That was 3 games ago for him. Georgiev's last 2 games were the 5-0 shutout loss to the Winnipeg Jets and the 6-4 victory over the Buffalo Sabres, despite the win let in 4 goals. Easily his 2 worst games of the season. Pavel Francouz played in Boston when they lost 5-1, and the game before that was that 4-3 loss in Vancouver a couple weeks ago when the Avalanche were kind of upset about a call late in the 3rd period. But regardless, both goalies are coming off of 2 straight games where they had bad games and where they've let in, 4+ goals. Now, the reality is I don't think that's going to continue. You are going to get some saves from your goalies. The issue that I have with the Avalanche continuing to lose pieces is, number one, the more pieces you lose, now Lehkonen being a top scorer, the less weapons you have on the power play, which we're now seeing without Lehkonen. It's going to look a little bit different. Assuming Lehkonen's out, we don't have an update on that yet, but I'm going to go ahead and assume he's probably going to be out for a little bit. Now, the other thing is, as the Avalanche lose these weapons, they have 1 line. They don't even have a 1 line. They have 2 players. They got Nathan MacKinnon. They got Mikko Rantanen. It is a heck of a lot easier for other teams to focus on shutting those 2 guys down when they don't have to worry about the other line scoring. Outside of JT Compher having a crazy game against the Buffalo Sabres, you're not seeing a lot of crazy production from the second line or the third or the fourth lines. So teams right now are focusing on MacKinnon and Rantanen. They shut them down, they win a game. They don't shut them down, they're probably going to lose a game. And Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, every time they've had good games, it's because they are so strong that sometimes they can beat those, the defenders, even when the team focuses on them. But what we've seen in these last couple of losses, the one in Winnipeg and Boston, is teams are focusing on shutting those guys down, and they're doing a good job at it, and it's going to happen. There's only so much that you can carry a team as one or two players.
Oh my gosh, I know. It just makes me sad hearing all of this, but obviously, like I said, they're still finding ways, and these guys are elite. They're professionals. They know what's going on. They know what they have to do, but it's been a kind of a rocky road here. And obviously, a lot of people are wondering, which kind of brings me to my next question. When you have a team that made that Stanley Cup run, last year, they obviously play many more months than the regular season. Of course, it could lead to them being tired legs, injuries. So do you think that has anything to do with losing Manson and Lehkonen this past weekend as well? Do you think that Stanley Cup final run had anything to do with all of these injuries, Arif?
Potentially. It's hard to really put a gauge on that. I mean, the reality is the Avs were relatively, and I say relatively loosely because we saw the injuries last year, but they were relatively healthy. I mean, during the Stanley Cup final run. So Darcy Kemper had that scare with the eye injury. Obviously, he's not here anymore. Burakovsky got injured late in the Stanley Cup final. He's obviously not here anymore, but he's healthy right now. Nazem Kadri broke a finger, and we're seeing that he's played every game this year. Cogliano broke a finger. We're seeing that that's not having an issue. Manson is the one that I could see being a problem. Because we don't know how he got hurt. We just know he played a game, and then we know that he disappeared after playing that game. And it was ultimately, it was kind of obvious the Avalanche had something going on, because on Friday night they called up Andreas Engelland, the defenseman from the minors. And right away I'm like, all right, who's hurt? Who's the guy? And then Saturday morning we learned it was Josh Manson. So that one, yeah. Arturi Lehkonen, absolutely not, because there's that replay of Charlie McAvoy kind of body slamming Lehkonen in the crease. There was that battle for the puck, and then McAvoy grabbed him and throws him down to the ice. If it's a shoulder injury or something like that of some sort, obviously they said it was upper body. That has nothing to do with the Stanley Cup final. But what the Stanley Cup final does do when you play that long is, Darren Helm is a lingering injury issue that kind of over the summer didn't go as good as planned. Nichushkin was the same thing. As those injuries started to pile up, well, now guys like McKinnon, guys like Cale Makar, Devon Toews, even Lehkonen, even Mikko Rantanen, you now have to play them a heck of a lot more than you want to, coming off of a short summer. So now you can start to see some tired legs. You can start to see some fatigue, maybe some banged up players, Cale Makar, even Devon Toews. So it can have a ripple effect. Is it the direct cause? I don't think so. But I mean, it helps to be healthy when you come off a long run where you don't got to play Makar 30 minutes a night.
And that's a lot of hockey to play in those playoffs, especially in the Stanley Cup. So yes, they obviously did not have the same time off as a lot of other teams, but they also have professional trainers. They have, athletic trainers, all of these things that can help them with their bodies and with recovery and whatnot. So I agree with you there. It probably has something to do with it, but it can't be the only reason here. I mean, again, we all see how physical this sport is. Injuries are a given no matter what. It's not like you're going to have a team stay healthy all season long across the league. That's just not going to happen. But it does seem like the Avs are getting hit pretty hard. So not a bad factor to consider there. But yes, absolutely agree with you on all of that, Arif. We'll move on to the next one here. At what point do the injuries become a real threat to the outlook of this current season?
They become a threat when the team struggles in the standings, and 2 losses in 3 games sucks. And the way that they lost those games 5-1 and 5-0 is really tough, but we're not there yet. Okay. The Avalanche they're 13-8-1. They started the season 4-4-1. I know 2 of the losses are in the last 3 games, but they're 9-4 in their last 13. They have won 9 of 13 games. Think about that. With all the injuries that have happened, with everything that we've been talking about, they have won 9 of 13 games. Mm-hmm. And I know one of the other things to keep in mind is right now they've only played 22 games. Of the teams in the Western Conference, they're technically listed 8th in the West, but that's not very accurate. They're 1 point behind Edmonton. They have 3 games in hand. They're 1 point behind Minnesota with 2 games in hand. They're 3 points behind the LA Kings with 5 games in hand. 4 behind the Jets with a game in hand. You get the point. Everybody ahead of them has played a lot more games. The Avalanche already had a light schedule to start the year.
Yeah.
And then you add in the fact that they had that game in Nashville the day after Thanksgiving that was postponed now till the last day of the regular season. That you're going to see that they're now one game extra behind. Now, having games in hand is great. The issue with having games in hand is right now they're about to play every other night in December. They have a busy schedule in the heat of these injuries. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot, but these players are professionals. If they can get into a rhythm, they'll be fine. The point when the injuries become a real threat is, for Avalanche fans, I'm sure you guys followed this, pretty well last year. Look at what happened to the Vegas Golden Knights last year. The injuries were too much to the point where they missed out on the playoffs. They fell out of the playoff contention. They fell out of the playoff picture. They tried to make that last run. They had 95 points and still missed the playoffs. You don't want it to get to that point. Are we there now? Absolutely not. But if one or two more guys go down on top of the guys that, like, if McKinnon or Makar goes down, it's a little bit of a time to panic.
Don't even say it out loud, Arif. Don't even say it.
Even Alexander Georgiev, if it gets to that point, you can start to panic. We're just not there yet.
Okay, not yet. It feels like if we're chipping away here, though, every week.
We are chipping away at getting there.
Someone else. Okay, Arif, this is a question that I have for you just after this conversation. Last week, you talked about how after one of the games, you asked Coach Bednar, how are you guys winning with all of these injuries? And he kind of flat out said, I don't know. So is anyone asking him now, okay, do these injuries now have to do with these two brutal losses this past week? I know you said don't panic, and I'm not going to get crazy like, oh my God, they're losing. I know it was just 2 games, but since they were kind of brutal losses, has anybody asked Coach Bednar if the injuries or whatever he thinks is playing into that?
He's already in it. He's admitted that. There's no question. He knows that. Nathan McKinnon, I remember somebody tried to ask Nathan McKinnon, I think it was JJ or I forget who, but somebody tried to ask Nathan McKinnon, how does it feel to know that despite all these injuries, you guys are chipping away and winning all these games? And McKinnon's not going to buy this romanticized storyline headline. He's like, I'd rather have our guys. I'd rather not have to carry the team, basically was, it would be better if our guys were healthy. So Jared Bednar's the same thing. If you try to sit there and, when I asked him, how are you guys doing it? He's not going to sit there and buy into, create this dramatic, we're just this. And he's just like, it's unfortunate. It's hard. I don't know how we're doing it, but we're finding a way, and hopefully we can get healthy because that's what we want. So nobody wants to be the team that everybody's looking at and going, look how great they are. Look how strong they're playing with all their guys injured, because they're tired. They're playing a lot of minutes. The top guys are playing a lot. So it's kind of similar to, the Nathan McKinnon argument we've had over the last 4 years of this is the best bargain contract in the NHL. Players don't want to hear that. Players don't want to hear that they are on the, worst contract. So it's similar idea to that. They would much rather have their guys healthy. They would much rather Nathan McKinnon doesn't have to play 23, 24 minutes. Makar doesn't have to play 30. Jared has admitted he knows the injuries are playing a part of it. He's doing everything he can to combat that, but you can only do it to an extent sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Arif, can you give us a little breakdown of what's going on with the Colorado Avalanche this coming week before we wrap up here so everybody knows what to look forward to on their game schedule?
Yes, so today is Monday. They are in Philadelphia for a game against the Flyers. The Flyers are not having a good season right now, so it should be a pretty...
They were in the beginning.
They were in the beginning, and then it kind of fell off a little bit. So that should be a victory. Granted, right now anything could happen, but I think the Avalanche could squeak out a victory there. Okay. Then they have the Bruins on Wednesday, which they just played. We know the Bruins are a good team. Yeah. And then they have 2 struggling teams in a row to close out the week, Friday and Sunday. The New York Rangers have been struggling mightily, and then they're on the road next Sunday in St. Louis for an early 1 p.m. Mountain Time game on ESPN, also struggling. And then after that, just to kind of get ahead of ourselves, next week they go Philadelphia, Buffalo, Nashville. Again, 3 struggling teams. So it is a light-ish schedule. Outside of the Boston Bruins, none of these other teams have better records than the Avalanche. None of these other teams are playing good hockey right now. Mm-hmm. So you can catch a little bit of a break, but for those other teams, they're also catching a break because they're not getting the Avalanche. They're getting bits and pieces of the Avalanche coming to town. So I expect a good week. I expect some bounce backs from the goalies as long as Georgie and Frankie make some saves, and as long as Nathan McKinnon can get some points, as long as Val Nichushkin or other people get healthy and you start to add in that depth. I think they'll be fine. They just got to keep weathering the storm. Again, I know they've lost 2 of 3, and the victory they had, they let in 4 goals, but they're 9-4 in their last 13, and they've done it without Nichushkin, without Helm, without Landeskog. Rodriguez was hurt 7 games ago. Then they lost, Bowen Byram way back in the beginning of the month of last month. Actually, it's been a month now in Finland. Now Josh Manson, now Lehkonen. They've been doing this, and they're 9-4 in their last 13. We got to remember that when you win 7 in a row or 7 of 8, and then you lose 2 of 3, you got to take the good with the bad. You put it all together, they're 9-4. So I think they'll be fine. That Philadelphia game will be a good spot to start tonight.
All right. Sounds good, Arif. Thank you so much to everybody listening. Thank you for being here. Make sure that you are following Arif at RunRightArif on Twitter and Mile High Sports, of course, on Twitter as well. Like I said, we'll send out that tweet so that you can answer. I keep saying answer so that you can answer the tweet. You can reply to the tweet. You can do whatever you want on the tweet. Comment on the tweet with your question so that Arif can give you the answers when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche. Arif, I appreciate you, and I will see you next week.
Sounds great. Thank you.